So we're going to complete some guided notes over circumference. This has to do with the lesson that we did on the Friday before we got out for winter break. And so we're going to start with some definitions up here. And the first one is a circle. A circle is the set of all points in a plane that are the same distance from the point called the circle. So it's a lot of words. Basically, it's saying we have a center, and I'm not going to draw this very well, but it's all the points in a plane that are the same distance from a point called the center. Okay, so not a very good circle here. But if you think about it, all those points, eventually they'll be all a solid, I don't want to say a line, but it'll be solid around that center, okay? So that's what we call a circle. And the circumference is a word that means distance around a circle. Okay, so I always think of like this part meaning circle, circ, and then ference. I always think of fence, circ, fence, circumfence. So I always think as a fence goes around a yard, so in this case, around a circle. Okay, so circumference is around, kind of like perimeter, but it would be perimeter of a circle. Okay, now we have two important words here that we need to make sure we know. One of them is diameter. Okay. Diameter is your distance across the circle through the center. Okay. All the way across. We call it the diameter. Okay. Whereas the radius is the distance from the center to any point. So if you think about it, from here to here, and from here to here, from here to here, these are all the same distance. Now I know on mine it looks kind of like an oval, but on yours it should look more like a circle, okay? So all of these would be, each would be a radius, and plural of that is radii. So right here I'm saying 3 different radii. All of the radii are the same length, okay? And if I double the radius, here's 1, here's 2. If I double the radius, I get a diameter, okay? So I'm going to get rid of this one so as to not confuse you, okay? So all of those would each be a radius, or we call them radii for plural, okay? So basically, if I have my radius and I put another radius over here, right, directly across, that would make a diameter, okay? So in our lab, we found pi. Okay, how did we find pi? Well, we started by putting, remember our candy? You put our candy around the circle and you gave me a number for that. Well, around the circle, remember that is circumference. And then I had you put the candy across the circle. Remember that? Point to point. So first we found the circumference, then we found the diameter, and then we divided. And that gave us a number that, for most of us, it was from 2.8 or 2.9, and we got up to maybe 3.2, okay? And that represents pi. Now, when pi is calculated, for lack of a better word, accurately, we usually use something that's 3.14. It's a number that's irrational. It goes and goes and goes, but it does not ever repeat, okay? So we estimate pi to be 3.14. Sometimes we use 22/7. So just a little information for you. So pi, when we use it, most of the time, we're going to use 3.14. If you're having trouble multiplying, if it's multiple choice, you could use 3 for pi. Just make sure you're getting an answer that's close. Now, We use pi to typically help us find circumference. So in order to do that, I need to get C all by itself. Remember, I want to get C equals. I want to figure out what it equals. So basically, I have to get rid of diameter. Since diameter is down, since it's divided by D, I do times D. Okay, so C equals pi D. So this is the formula we're going to see on our formula chart. So if you have your formula chart now, on the part where the formulas are, it starts with equations, slope-intercept form, and then if you move down, it will say circumference. Okay, so that's the formula we're going to be using. Now I'm going to pull this up just a little bit. And I'm going to remind you that this one is diameter and this one is radius. We need that in order to help us solve our circumference problems. So let's figure out what goes in here. It says the diameter is equal to blank the radius. Okay, the diameter is equal to blank the radius. So D and radius, D and R. How are these related? Okay, so it looks like your radius is smaller, right? The diameter is bigger. So we double the radius. Or you can say the radius is half the diameter, okay? This radius would be half of that, right? So these are just formulas showing how the diameter and radius are equal. And we just talked about that. If I have this radius and I put another radius right there, that's giving me that diameter, okay? So over here, we have our formulas that we see on our formula chart. Circumference equals pi d, or circumference equals 2 pi r, okay? So since we have two formulas, we have to make sure we know what we're solving for. So the first thing I want you to do on both of these, okay, is I want you to figure out what 33 is. Look up here. Is it the diameter or the radius? Hopefully you said it's the diameter because it goes all the way across. Okay? Now look over here. What is that? Hopefully you said radius. Okay? Because it only goes to the center. So we need to make sure that we know which one is which. Now in 8th grade, we really use that radius more. Most of the time we're using the radius. So in order to find radius, we would take half of the diameter. Now this one I'm not going to do that because we have an odd number and I don't want to deal with decimals right now any more than I have to because I'm already going to have to use them. But basically, to figure out the radius, we would take 33 and divide by 2 to find the radius. Okay? Okay. So we've already answered this question, guys. This is what we have to answer first when we're dealing with circles. So since we know that this is the diameter, do you think I'm going to use formula 1 or formula 2? Hopefully you said formula 1 because what do we see here? D for diameter, D for diameter. So C equals pi d. So now I'm going to substitute. Remember, substitute just means plug your numbers in. So pi is 3.14. It's not a variable, but we're going to use it. And it tells us to use that. Okay? 3.14. And then my diameter is 33. So all we have to do, this is it. All we have to do is multiply to find our circumference. So I want you to take a second and get a head start and start multiplying that. If you don't know your threes, just list them to the side. Okay. 3 times 3, 12. And by the way, if you want to do this first and wait, that's perfectly fine. So you can pause the video to wait while I do this and then check it yourself. 3 times 4, 12, carry the 1. 3 times 1, 3, plus 1, 4. 3 times 3, 9. Hold my spot because I just finished up taking care of that. 3 times 3, 12, carry the 1. 3 times 1, 3 plus 1, 4. 3 times 3, 9. Now I'm adding. 9 plus 4 is 13. Carry the 1. 9 plus 1, 10. And last but not least, move the decimal. 1, 2, 1, 2. So my answer is 103 and 62 hundredths. It didn't work out very well, did it? Meters. And I'm just going to put meters because it's not area, it's not meters squared. Circumference is a distance. Okay? Now the next one we're going to do, we're going to actually use 22 over 7. Now don't freak out because this is a fraction. Almost always we're using this one, but just in case, just in case, I'm going to show you how to use 22 over 7. Okay? So first thing, we've already labeled it. We know the radius because it goes to the center. So do you think I'm going to use formula 1 or formula 2? Hopefully you said formula 2 because formula 2 has R and I know R. So C equals 2 pi R. So 2 times pi, they told me here for number 2 to use 22 over 7. Don't let that scare you. Times my radius is 14. Okay, so probably this doesn't look right. So let's put over 1 over 1. Now, can you tell why we used 22 over 7? Hopefully you can tell it's because this 7 is going to work without 14. We have a relationship, right? 7 divided by 7, 14 divided by 7. Okay. 2 times 22, 44. 44 times 2, 88. So look, when it all comes down to it, I did not even need to use my decimal. Okay, so on this, my answer is just 88. Now, if we use 3.14, it'd be very, very close, just a fraction different on the answer there. Okay, so my units are inches. Okay. So the very last thing I want to do is just show you one thing real quick. This seems like something confusing, but it's really not. But we use this idea a lot, especially in upper level math. Sometimes they'll tell you leave things in terms of pi. So when it says leave things in terms of pi, that means they actually want to see the pi sign in the answer. So in this case, my diameter is 33. Circumference is pi times d. So to leave it in terms of pi, I would just say, oh, well, diameter is 33 pi. That's called leaving it in terms of pi. Over here, it's the same thing, but instead, I'm going to sub in my radius right here, 14. That, again, did not work out well. 2 times 14. Okay, you can come ask me about this if this is confusing to you. So I'm multiplying this one and this one. So that's 28 pi. So it's actually really easy. It saves us some multiplication. We don't have to multiply by 3.14. We don't have to multiply by 22 over 7. So we're going to be doing some practice problems where you find circumference.